And now, finally, for could I say one of my most looked forward to reassemblies, and that is the Sump cover. Putting this back on will make me feel like the engine is really coming together. So I have cleaned the plates and the contact areas on both sides with some isopropyl alcohol. And the plan is to use a gasket sealant, because the older models have a gasket on it, but my one just had sealant on the newer models. So we're going to use this gasket sealant. We're going to go and Loctite 572 all the bolts. And the next thing to note is how rusty some of the bolts were. So I've actually replaced those. It was very hard to get these bolts. I actually had to order some from the US and some from Europe to prevent having to get them from Japan from Yamaha. But we're going to finally reassemble this and put it together. First thing I'm going to do is just apply Loctite, a drop in every single thread, and then I can apply the sealant and it's not going to mix. I have the engine propped up on the bench, it's balancing. It takes a lot more energy to push it back, so it's currently leaning on these two pillars I have set up. That means that although it is balancing this way, it is at a slight angle that way. So any liquids will run back into itself. It's not draining oil onto the bottom, and it's not going to get oil out on the sealant as we put it on. So next thing we do, just put on the sealant. Now we're going to place it on. We're going to put some bolts in. There is a specific pattern to tighten the bolts. You can pause the video and look at it if you need to do this. But basically it's kind of an opposite. So it's kind of like zigzags. And I will be following this. The other thing to note is it's all torqued to the same value, and there's only one torque value, and that's 12 Newton meters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on, and then I'm going to tighten a lot of things by hand, and then we're going to torque everything together. So as you can see, there's a film that's squeezed out around the edge of the sealant. I can see it around the total edge, which means that that's enough. It's definitely got a good seal on it. So now we're just going to torque it. There's also numbers specified on the bottom of this case on the torque numbers to do if you don't have the manual to do it. There's a 1 here, there's a 2 there. So now I'm going to torque it up. I want to run over the oil pump briefly because this is a component that, interestingly enough, Yamaha doesn't want you to open up. And I learned that because When I went to replace these 3 bolts, which as you can see are pretty rusty, I found that I couldn't buy replacement bolts, and furthermore, when I actually opened it up, I couldn't buy replacement O-rings either. So let's open it up and have a look, and I'll show you my solution to the problem. So these are the 3 bolts. As you can see, they're only rusty on their heads, and they go into these larger holes. See how it's loose? Meaning if you needed to replace them and you couldn't find a replacement option, you could actually get any stainless steel bolts that are continuously threaded and cut them to length. That would work. I've confirmed that works. I have other bolts that I was going to do this with, but in my situation I found an alternative solution. So inside, it's pretty simple. You can see I have taken the guts out already. The guts are these 2 pump gears, a drive bar with 2 sliding pins, and 2 O-rings. This one here, and this one here, which I cut. You can't buy these O-rings and you can't buy these bolts. This is super frustrating because it seems like it's just an oversight from Yamaha. It's not a complicated component to open up, and we're going to reassemble it in a minute. My solution to O-rings that are perished, like these ones, is I went and I bought O-ring rubber. To match the size, and today I'm going to show you how to make 2 O-rings. It's pretty simple. You'll be surprised how well it works. But essentially we're just going to trace our old O-ring. In fact, yeah, that's equal. We're going to trace it round. I cut this O-ring. I'm not pulling it hard, I'm not stretching it. I'm just tracing it through my fingertips. So the 2 pieces I have will work out to be the same length. There we go, that's the length. So I'm just going to cut that. So I have a rag here with some isopropyl alcohol. I'm just going to clean that. Clean this end. And all we're going to do is we're just going to super glue these ends together. Super simple, but it's also super effective. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch the ends on the dot of super glue, and then we're going to stick them together. There we go. So now we have an O-ring, and it's actually stretchy, super stuck. I'm going to give this a quick wipe. Let's place it in and see how it looks. Looks like it fits pretty good. It's hard to keep it in place, that's the only thing I would say. But it's there enough that we can get the back plate on. Let's make another one. And that's the next one done. One is slightly bigger than the other, which will make it easier to be put on. I'm just going to clean this plate down with a bit of engine degreaser. The way this assembles is pretty simple. On this shaft you have a key. It's going to go in from the engine side, like that. And that's gone in. It's going to place the thin piece over the gear. Slot that into place. There we go. There's a tiny dot on that gear, and you're just going to take the other gear and you're going to find the side with the tiny dot, and you're going to put it on just like so. That's that side done. Now we're going to put our O-ring on, and we're going to line up our back plate. There we go, that's lined up. Now we're going to place our back plate on top of that O-ring. Just add a few tiny bits of oil. Onto the O-ring. It's key that you never put an O-ring in dry. This will help it seal. There we go. Keeping those pressed together, I'm just going to flip the whole thing over. Because of the key, I'm going to place it on two boxes to just raise it up slightly. Now the next thing to do is to put the pin on the other side. Easiest way to do this is just take a needle nose pliers, slot it into place. Same as the other one, we're just going to install it, but this time we're going to put the dot facing in. Like so. O-ring into place. And top cover on. Oh, it's coming out. Top cover on. Bam, bam, bam. Now, like I said, if you don't have new bolts, you can make new bolts. But this is going to be a spare oil pump for me, so I'm going to just use the old bolts. Loctite 572 on the threads. Now, because Yamaha doesn't give you instructions on how to take this down, they don't give you torque specs. So we're just going to hand tighten these. It doesn't have to be crazy. It's just enough to squeeze the two plates together with the O-ring in the middle. There you have it. Give it a few turns to make sure it works. That is a fully reassembled and restored oil pump. Luckily for me, while I was hunting for parts online, I found for $29 I actually could buy a whole new oil pump from the States secondhand from a ski. As you can see, it's in perfect condition compared to my one. This is the one I'm going to be reassembling for my restoration. But I hope this video helped you restore your oil pump. The US jet ski parts market is really good, so that's how I got it. To go with this, I also have a brand new gasket. And brand new bolts to replace the old ones. Look how shiny they are. Got the gasket here, I'm just going to line it up. It's going to be two pins it sits on for alignment. There, also on the engine side. This is how it's going to go. So let's put it on the engine first with those alignment pins. One thing to note is I've cleaned all of these surfaces with isopropyl alcohol so that there is no grease or oil between the gasket and the surfaces. You can see there's two alignment pins here and here. They'll keep it in place. Just in here. Small bolts all torqued to 10 Newton meters. The bigger ones, the first torque is 15 Newton meters. Second is 28 Newton meters. That's the oil pump done. Since these got so targeted by rust last time, I'm going to be applying some waterproof marine grease to the heads of these bolts and around the bottom of it as well. These are the torque values for the bolts. What I do is I just take this blue marine grease, it's non-water soluble, and it can get pretty hot before it comes off. I have a tube with a brush, an old brush, and just in it goes around these bolts, those areas which water is going to be touching those. This gives a nice coating. Give it all a good coating. That will ensure longevity of all of this aluminium and the new bolts.